Well, welcome again to another Jazz Matters podcast. Today we got my good friend Charles Marvray, and we saw his hand just now, so we got that too. But we're also here with the great Vaughn Coulter from Jazz Beats Radio. And what's going on, Vaughn, as far as everything, technical issues or technical issues?
What the technical issues are technical issues. You're absolutely right. But everything is everything.
Yes,
I look at it.
Cool. So we will get started right quick. Charles, man, we've known each other for a few. And for everybody that does not know who you are, just let them know who you are, where you're from, and how long, what was the reason for you getting into this business?
Well, actually, okay, let's start from the beginning. I'm actually from Pensacola, Florida, born and raised there by way of Washington, D.C. I went into the military, went into the Marine Corps, and been in there for eons. And then got out and started teaching at George Washington University. I was in the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps, where I was the percussion instructor and arranger. Really enjoyed that. So my background actually started in drum and bugle corps and segued into jazz and pop music, right out of high school, and got more involved back into playing the kit, at the tail end of my career in the Marine Corps. I was also teaching down at the Armed Forces School of Music down there, where I was teaching. I was actually became the department head after leaving there and going back and finishing up at Marine Barracks 8th and I in the Commandant Ensemble Marine Drum and Bugle Corps. Got out of there and then went down and started teaching at George Washington University in the Jazz Studies program down there with my good friend David Marsh, really renowned bass player up in the DC area. And I played in my main group was actually a fusion group, an original fusion group called Stickman. We had some really nice material. And I would say it actually was on the line of Yellow Jackets type stuff we were doing. And then came down here and I had a couple of gospel groups, jazz gospel groups, and ended up down here in Atlanta, and just moved down here because of economics and housing, and really enamored with that, and got hooked up with, I guess for a pretty good while, a friend of ours, OG the Pen, and was with him for quite a number of years. And my bass player then was Tony Cunningham, TC. So we did a lot of stuff with Ojeda then, and I've had a lot of other bass players that came in and out after TC left, and actually spent some time with you, my brother.
Oh yeah,
and
that was a hard gig then, wasn't
it? Well,
I was just kidding, man.
We're gonna leave that. We had a good time.
Yeah, we did.
We had a good time, and
definitely.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot from you. I'm a bass aficionado. Bass and keyboard. I learned a lot from Ojeda as well, and had a great opportunity with him. I've learned a lot from other keyboard players, Tyrone Jackson, one of my favorites, Al Smith. Just a number of guys here in the area, but so that's what kind of left me with Alan and Lita Blake. Done a lot of stuff with him. There's a lot of guys who I've played. I've been fortunate, really fortunate.
Yes. Now, what do you think about since we're all locked down? Are you preparing anything after the lockdown? For next year? Are you doing any writing while you're off, or anything like that?
No, actually, I'm not doing it. And when you talk about the lockdown, you're talking about
the pandemic here.
The pandemic,
yeah.
and there have been a lot of psychological changes that I've gone through in the midst of that, spiritual, predominantly.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been staying busy, but not as focused in terms of preparing for, certain music or whatever, or writing anything. I'm not a writer. I'm more of a performer, and I have access to doing that, and we've discussed that a lot of that. But I've been moved to more in a complimenting other people, and I enjoy that more than wanting to sit down and write things.
We froze, Charles, some kind of way. But Vaughn, we talked about that before, about since the pandemic has been bestowed upon us, so to say.
Yeah.
How a lot of musicians go through, like I called it, a type of depression of not being able to do what they do and create, because musicians need a lot of space, and that space is all creative space,
Mm-hmm.
So we got Charles back. Are you good, Charles?
There we go.
Yeah, you froze on me, man. I thought I'd said something wrong.
Okay.
You
I don't know what you said.
well, anyway, we Vaughn Coulter here is with Jazz Beats Radio,
Right.
And we talked about the fact that since the pandemic lockdown, is what I call it, a lot of musicians have gone through a slight depression. And that's the way I term it. It's a slight depression simply because it's almost like they now they got to figure out what to do. When especially when somebody does it for a living, you see. And since that has happened, that depression, but, fortunately, even myself, I've come through, I'm a victim of that, you see, but I've overcome that simply by doing things that pertain a lot to music, but coming at it a different way, because I'm looking in the future. I'm looking to come out different as far as what my approach to certain things. And so that keeps me busy. And when it keeps me busy, it keeps that drag of the depression away. You see what I'm saying? So as long as I'm doing something musically that I'm basically involving myself in, and it's an experiment, a gigantic experiment that's got to proceed, even beyond now. The whole spiritual aspect of it, like you were talking about earlier, that's all a part of it. Just as the fundamental part of it when you get to rehearsing. And then when you find out, wait a minute, there's a lot of things I can do. I need to sharpen up this. I need to go at it this way. I need to do that. And when you say you're not a writer, I disbelieve that, because I already know you are a writer, but you may not write for other people. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But you are a writer. And the thing about it is, there's basically nobody that can pull that out of you better than me. You know what I'm saying? So I can do that, because then, hey, that's where it goes. You got to have somebody.
You have done it.
You got to have somebody that could see it and allow you to do it. Express it.
Yeah.
But what do you think is really like the scene before the pandemic in Atlanta? What do you think where do you think it's headed? Is the music headed more into totally smooth jazz, or do you see a comeback on the acoustic edge?
Oh, wow. Good question. And I'm going to try not to get angry about it.
Hey, man, you know what? You virtual. It don't matter.
It don't matter.
Yeah. Okay. You know me well. You know I'm not a click person. And that's been a big thing for me, the things that I have seen in that. But when you start talking about, is it more smooth jazz, and let's call it what it is, really R&B.
Right.
okay, posing to be
Right.
jazz.
Most definitely, yeah.
And that extremely urinates me off.
Okay. I'll accept that.
I'll put it that way. And that's a real nice a Marine Corps way of saying it. Okay. And I see a lot of people doing it. And you know how they used to talk about, what's the guy's name, sax player? I can't think of his name right now.
I believe if I throw a letter, I was going to say, I throw a letter out to you, you know who I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Kenny G, how everybody's talked about him as pretty much as a sellout, I don't mind music evolving, but let's call it what it is, and be able to differentiate from that. And I think a lot of people here, they sell out because that's what the dumbing down of the public. And because the public is buying, those that will buy and come out and support that, that's what the public wants. That's what they want. They want to hear. And they're not interested in intellectualizing above what they think they know. And that has always bothered me. When I hear stuff, the people work their whole lives to bust their tail to gain a certain depth, in their execution, and now they're relegated to playing just 3 chords and they're out, and they're good with it.
Yeah,
they're good with it, And I'm like, I know that they can do more than that, and I have played with guys that are that way, that can play, but they won't do it because they know there's nobody's going to buy it and that the people are not going to come out. And so where am I? Well, you have to adapt,
and overcome.
And overcome. You got to. We're bred to do that,
Right.
But you do as much as you can do,
Uh-huh.
I don't like it. I'll be honest with you. I don't like it. But I do like everybody else. But I have an attitude about it when I'm doing it.
Yeah, and see, one thing I think that could happen in that situation is that you can actually, I guess you could say, you can integrate the 2 cultures. In other words, you can take the real what we call the classical jazz or the straight ahead jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And you can basically integrate it into today's culture. But in a lot of cases, you would have to change your instrumentation. In other words, instead of it being straight up, all acoustic, and even if it's straight up all acoustic, you can still do it, because I've done it, in certain situations. What the on the performing end, what the people are going to accept is right now what they know, and it's simple. The generations have changed. Yep. and your audience has changed. As long as you are playing continuously, you're going to either adapt to the change, or you're going to go to the smaller audience that can appreciate what you're doing. You see, but when you go to the smaller audience that appreciates what you're doing, you're no longer doing it for a living.
Right.
You see, that's the difference.
For the art form.
Yeah, exactly. You're going for the art itself, which is something that we also have to keep that uplifted, just as high. And in order to do that, you just have to have the venues that will support it, because a lot of venues won't support it. I've actually gone to venues, and believe it or not, have pulled out the acoustic bass, and the people looked at me and said, "Oh, we don't like that," before they even heard anything.
I remember that.
And I'm like, and that's wild, But for the most part, what do you think? Your answer to the younger musician, you actually have been in the education field for the music, and to get them to appreciate as much of the classical jazz as they should, because even if of course their generation is different, even if they really get deep down into the classical jazz, they will become a lot better on the electric side of it.
Right.
Because you can now you don't have to deal with 3 chords anymore, because you can get inside of whatever is going on, you know. So what do you think about what kind of advice could you give a young musician right now?
Well, my advice is, first of all, getting into a program that can provide that kind of diversity, that they are thorough with it, you know, and understanding, being able to just, I don't want to say ram it down their throat, because, you know, when I talk to young kids, a lot of kids don't know, and they're just, you know, they're just out here chopping, you know, and they haven't had the education, either from the experience of other people who have gone through, you know, good programs like Berkeley, you know, where they're pretty thorough in every aspect of getting the information, you know, and they don't play with it, you know. They make sure you got to get it, you know, and you're gonna know it, you know. I came to it late, because you know, and I'm one of those people where I figured that my own talent would just take me as far as I didn't need to go. I didn't need to learn this. I didn't need to learn that. And like I said, I came to it late. So what I tell these young guys, you know, if they'll listen, that's the other part about it. If they'll even listen, you know, because they do you know what I mean by mammon? You know what mammon is? You understand mammon? What mammon is?
Mm-hmm.
In other words,
that's a biblical term, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it is that desire. Everything operates on money.
Mm-hmm.
They want that dollar.
Yep.
They want that fame, and they're greedy about it, and that's what they're hungry about. And anything that they can, that's what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, and why they don't want to learn anything. You know, they don't want to learn anything that doesn't relate, or they want to learn as much as they can that's going to get them that dollar. Which now but it's still the basis for it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
their desire to learn. That bothers me. So Edwin, when you're talking about what you know, what you're gonna tell these young kids, you know, I'm like, do they even want to know? You know?
Yeah, that's I mean, I see where they'll tell you one thing, you know, and then all of a sudden they'll show you another, you know, and it all boils down to, you know, whether it's about the culture or whether it's about the, you know, the end game, which is the dollar, you see.
Right.
And unfortunately for a lot of youngsters, it is about the dollar, but they don't understand that if the deeper they can get into the culture, the dollars, you know, they, instead of chasing them, the dollars come to them.
It will come.
Yeah, you know, it's just that simple, because you have the talent, you have the skill. Vaughn, you want to weigh in on anything?
Well, you know, I couldn't put it any better than Charles just did. But I will say, I respect his honesty about, you know, how frustrated he is with, you know, the madness that exists today, culturally speaking, between the generations. You know, I was going to add to that, you know, because as a programmer on a radio station, you know, and I produce my own show, you know, there's that fine line, because it's just, you run into that. See, I don't have any problem. I want the effort to be where I can put in some Dexter Gordon with what I'm doing with the smooth jazz. Mm-hmm. And because that's the format that is set for me. So most of the listeners know smooth jazz, but I believe that you got to know the origins of smooth, you know? You got to know where it came from and who was playing it. They didn't call it that back then, you know. I just think the term contemporary kind of fits more what was going on in the 60s,
right,
more so than, you know, modern jazz. But, you know, you can even play, like I like to play Ciora. Ciora is a beautiful song, you know, and it fits into that smooth jazz format, you know. And like I said, with Dexter Gordon's Tanya, Now, granted, it's a 12-minute song, but it still has the basic tenets of smooth. But folks have to understand they, you know, they fall in love with the smooth stuff, but you got to know where it started, you know.
Yep.
And I'm trying to find that right mix with my show. And I don't, you know, and it's a struggle sometimes because I actually can see people, you know, like we use apps. We have a thing we can map to see who's actually listening to us across the country and around the world. And I see the little dots start disappearing, you know, and I'm like, don't run away, stay with me here, you know. And so that's the essence of what, as a programmer, I'm trying to re-educate and get them to understand this came from somewhere. It just didn't spring up out of Kenny G, you know. And I hated the fact that they want to put that on Grover Washington Jr., that it started from him. Yeah, you know, so it just kind of like, no, you know, he was doing something like straight out of the 60s that was, you know, that was Grover, you know, that was Grover's foundation, you know. And so you can't, it needs to find a happy medium. And so that is what I wanted to, you know, bring to light, that we got to find a balance in this thing. We got to find out. And to me, the more they know, the happier that they'll be with the music as a whole, smooth and whatever, you know, and that contemporary sound.
Yeah. So Charles, saying on the Atlanta scene, do you think that there is a good possibility for a comeback on the traditional side? Because and I say that simply because I worked in a venue that's all they did, right? And I did it for a long time. But when I came out, I couldn't find another venue where that was happening night after night after night. And it kind of stunned me for a minute. And I was like, okay, I got to do this on my own, you know. So I had to figure out how to do it. So that's when Jazz Mattered basically came into existence, because I needed to give all the resident talent a platform. And what I noticed was no one had there was no platform here for it. And there still is not a platform, you know, in the greater Atlanta area, you see. So what I had to end up doing was creating one, you know, and I continue to do so for musicians like yourself that can do exactly what you want to do, you know what I'm saying, and have a place, you know, where they can do that.
Right. Well, I feel as you do. I can remember, about 15, 20 years ago, when I just gotten here, my idea of I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do, my whole set had Yellow Jackets, primarily Yellow Jackets. It was fusion. And I found out, and I balked against it. I wouldn't change, because I thought it was, you know, I didn't want to play what everybody else was playing. You know, and I can't do that. And I ended up having to do that, you know, to succumb to that, you know. But I'm like Edwin. Edwin was trying to do not a fusion, but a fusion of idioms, you know, to mix things in, to find a palette for everybody to be able to adjust to. And if they didn't know, then they would be learning something. You know, you teach them, you know, even though they don't even know they're being taught, you know. And I love that concept, you know. But again, now where are you going to do it? What club or venue? And you gotta at least go someplace else for that to be appreciated, you know, for that kind of thing to be appreciated, because it doesn't look like it's going to happen here in Atlanta, you know, unless it's established people who have made their bed playing the 3-chord funk R&B and calling it jazz, and that's because that's what the public likes, and they don't care who's doing it as long as you're doing it.
Right.
You go from venue to venue, and it's the same thing. guys playing the same licks, and I just, that's bothered me. I mean, and that's why I love Straight Ahead so much. And if I could just share this one thing, when I played with Edwin, I like I said, I'm a bass player, but Edwin is also a drummer too. He started out on drums, I believe, but he would ignite me. He would spearhead stuff, in the conversation that we be having, no matter what was going on around, and usually in a trio setting. I got my juice. I got my creative. He allowed me to express myself. A lot of people don't let you express yourself. I can tell you, I can count on probably one or two fingers. How many times Ojita would have let me have a solo. And I'll say this: I'm just bold like that. I'll put myself out there on the line. That wasn't my strong. My strongest point is complimenting and playing with the conversation.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And it's not that. And I had to work on it. I didn't like sitting down working on chopped things to be able to develop for a solo to showcase myself. Because that I see a lot of that with a lot of people. I understand what they're doing, and I can appreciate it on some level. But if you're not complimenting that music, if you're not supporting that music, and I don't feel like you're a part of the conversation, and I would have that with Edwin, he would give me the opportunity, either some nod or something musically he showed me, and that's a part of my learning, my education, So when I listen to other people out here, I'm saying you got to have a venue to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because and then they got to support it by doing their job.
True that.
They don't want to market it. They don't want to support the musician to help themselves out. They want that quick money based on mammon.
Right.
They're chasing that dollar. I want the quick dollar at that.
See, the thing is, it's almost like they can only see what's in front of them, but they can't see what's beyond. You see, that's a different thing. It's been great, Charles. I told you the time passed so fast.
Yeah, I know.
And the thing is there any platform on social media that people can contact you on to either see you who you work with, who you playing with, what you're doing now, email, anything?
Yeah, I have well, you can go on YouTube. You go to just key in my name, Charles Marvray, and I've got all my stuff up there. I got a lot of stuff up there. Different things that I've done right here,
right,
and some live stuff. With different people. I had to mention another brother of mine, Lou Olatosin. Love that brother. He's provided a lot for me to be able to get out and play with him and his music. But I've done a lot of stuff with him as well. But primarily YouTube, or you can go on my page. A lot of time I post stuff up on that.
Right.
On Facebook. I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, check that out.
Okay, Vaughn. Let everybody know where they can get you.
It can be found at Jazz Beats Radio, jazzbeatsradio.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at Von Coulter. And my Twitter page is Ain't Nothing But Soul. Ain't Nothing But Soul 1.
Cool. And I'm Edwin Williams, of course, with Jazz Matters. And you can get us at yesjazzmatters.org. And you can also go to the donate page and donate. The best nation of the world, donation. And we'll wait. Yes, sir. And we'll be back with on Mondays. And Charles, man, it was great to see you and hear you again. I know you're probably looking at me like, man, this guy that went out into the woods and grew hair on his face. But
hey, I was cool. I didn't say nothing.
Yeah, I know, but I could see you thinking. I saw the caption. Anyway, man, it was great. I told you I'd be good to our boy. And and so I'm good, we good. Like I said, I made sure I kept my end of the bargain.
Yeah,
All
you
right,
did.
Charles, man. But
Yeah.
thanks. And for Jazz Matters, we'll see you again next Monday. Peace out.
Peace.